my eyes whenever angry thoughts came to my mind. Grandma did what she had to do, but the times have changed, I'm telling you. The time has come for us to draw the line. Don't wait too late. Open up your eyes. Talk back, fight back. Time to organize.
Welcome to another edition of Progressive Community Media. I'm John Riley, today's host. The show will feature media outlets in the New York area that offer progressive political content, including WBAI New York, Community for Progressive Radio Metro, online at cprmetro.org, and others. I'll cover issues that are neglected or distorted by the corporate media, as well as unheard voices. On tonight's show, we'll look at radio station WBAI New York, which broadcasts on the FM signal at 99.5 FM and on the internet at wbai.org. WBAI is a part of the unique Pacifica radio network with 5 stations in New York, Washington, D.C., Houston, Los Angeles, and Berkeley, California. Pacifica is the founder of Community Radio and the creator of the on-air telethon to fund their stations. Founded by a World War II conscientious objector who objected to the rush to war fostered by corporate media, founder Lewis Hill created KPFA in Berkeley. The station, established in 1949, played music but became notable and notorious for its violation of corporate broadcast norms. Radicals, communists, civil rights activists, gays and lesbians, and even conservatives were all mixed on the airwaves. It came under scrutiny by the House Un-American Activities Committee and federal law enforcement for its free speech activities. WBAI was founded later in 1960 and was a gift by its owner to the Pacifica Foundation. WBAI continues the tradition of its sister stations and regularly brings listeners voices seldom heard on the corporate media, voices of struggle. On today's episode, we'll look at the morning show of WBAI. While WBAI has long had a morning show, in recent years it lost it because of budgetary cutbacks. Last fall, under the leadership of interim Program Director Mario Murillo, it's experienced a revival, not just in the morning show, but in the whole schedule. I spoke to Mario in studio following an April 2015 morning show.
Well, I came to WBAI back. I came back in 2014. I was actually in a sabbatical for my academic work to finish a book. But then I started hearing from different folks associated with WBAI, some board members, some management people, and it piqued my interest, saying, well, maybe this is an interesting opportunity, a very rare opportunity where I have this window of time where I can not have to focus on my academic responsibilities and work and perhaps get myself into a position where the station currently needs, and that's programming. So I made that decision against the better judgment of or recommendations of a lot of friends and family, given the difficult nature of the station. But I came in and I said the only way that WBAI will be relevant again is if we start making the community part of it, and if we start doing programming that addresses the needs of the community. Over the years, as the station continued to have its funding problems and it lost a lot of listenership, it started depending almost wholeheartedly on nationally syndicated foreign programming from other stations in the network, from afar, from California. Now these programs aren't bad, some of them may be, but it's not even judging the quality of those programs. It's just the fact that as a community radio station in New York serving the metro area of New York City, to have 98% of your programming, or a good chunk of your programming, coming from afar, especially during prime time hours in the morning, in the afternoon, and afternoon drive time, it's a shame. So I really started focusing on bringing in and targeting new voices, and some voices who had been part of BAI in the past that had left, and tried to reconstitute and rebuild the local programming to try to build an audience in that way. So the first place I focused on was the morning, and we didn't have and we don't have the budget to try to hire producers, to hire talent or voices or hosts. We used to, BAI, when I was directly involved in the morning show for years, we had a 7-person staff doing the morning. We had engineers, we had 2 producers, we had 2 hosts, we had a news person, all of those direct resources at a morning show. And even that's a little bit, right? When you look at some other stations and other, public radio, for example, they have dozens of people working in their programming in the morning. Now we only have 1 person, so I figured, and that's the engineer, co-host, producer, and chief announcer, doing 4 jobs in 1 person, Michael G. Haskins. So my approach was to try to bring in a lot of different voices, invite them to be a part of it, recognizing that they're going to be paying their own way, they're going to be using their sweat equity and their own resources to be a part of it, and to try to create this ripple effect of finding new audiences that would be engaged with what they're doing. And it's not been easy because people have jobs, people have other projects that they're working on, other things that they're working on, and people move on. So it has been a challenge, but we've been somewhat successful in once again bringing that local voice with a global perspective into the airwaves in the morning. And I think there's a lot to do, but we're moving in the right direction.
Every day, the morning show has news reports by Linda Perry and sometimes by Don DeBar.
And they have a lot of unsafe practices, and it's bad for the community too, because you have some big high-rise going up in your neighborhood, and you don't know if the guys that are doing it are licensed or working safe and working dangerous, which is it's not fair to the workers, it's not fair to the community. Pollutants could be going in the area, and they could be saying that they've been abating it the right way, and they're not, But when in the union, you can say that, okay, these guys have license, they're doing the proper way of the lead removal. The workers are getting proper health coverage, and they're getting paid the proper wage.
The Build Up NYC campaign is an alliance of working men and women. It includes political action, outreach, ongoing media campaigns, and public actions. Union members will continue to rally as members work to rebuild and protect New York City's middle class. Linda Perry, WBAI News, New York.
One of the voices rarely covered by the corporate media is the reparations movement, which seeks compensation from countries where slavery was permitted. Recently, the international movement for reparations gained a big boost because of a number of Caribbean states supporting it. Mario Murillo reports.
We're really excited here at WBAI. You've heard the promotional announcements. We talked about it all week, and it's approaching quickly. Thursday, April 9th, the starting day of the International Black Reparations Summit to meet in New York City. From April 9th through the 11th, WBAI is proud to be the official media sponsor. We'll be broadcasting 2 of the important events from that 3-day summit. And I'm pleased to be joined now this morning by Dr. Ron Daniels, who is one of the people spearheading this extraordinary event here in New York. Dr. Ron Daniels, of course, veteran civil rights attorney and activist. He's the co-founder and president of the Institute for the Black World in the 21st Century, and he's one of the conveners of this historic gathering. He's also going to be returning on the airwaves on Monday, so that's another exciting aspect of this. Dr. Ron Daniels.
Let me just say, we really, really appreciate WBAI being our media partner and it's these kinds of partnerships that really are the hallmark of the work of WBAI. This is one of the most important meetings and gatherings that I've ever been a part of. There's never, ever been a summit on reparations like this. And so for WBAI to be a part of it and to be promoting it, because it is big, 2 or 3 different locations we got to be at and all those things, is something that we're truly thankful for, and that the audience should be as well.
Well, that's what WBAI is here for and what it should be doing. We're also going to be trying to get Dr. Hilary Beckles. I'm excited to have him on. Hopefully we'll get him through on the phone in just a moment. He's the chairman of the CARICOM Reparations Commission, which in many ways kind of spearheaded this initiative. So could you give us a kind of an overview as to how the Caribbean nations in particular played a role in making this happen here in New York, and how this is leading to or continuing a movement that's been pretty active here in the United States for some time?
Well, and not only that, let me just say that Professor Hilary Beckles, and I do hope we get him on the line, he is a formidable public intellectual / activist. And in many respects, when you hear him talk, there's no question that his engagement in the conference in South Africa, where the December 12th movement here in New York played such an incredible role in driving home the point that the transatlantic slave trade was a crime against humanity and always should have been, was a part of his experience. He's the driving force behind this intellectually, and of course, you know how hard it is. It's very difficult to get in any if it's European nations, if it's African nations, to get everybody to come together on a single point is very difficult. But about 18 months ago, all 15 CARICOM affiliated, and CARICOM is the equivalent of the European Union, nations came together and unanimously, without dissent, voted that they were going after the former European colonialists for native genocide, and that's important. They clearly wanted to identify the issue of native genocide and African enslavement, and they put together a powerful 10-point program. They've got a legal team. They have, and it's at the level of heads of state. That doesn't mean the activists aren't important, but now you have a combination of heads of state. And let me just say in this regard, spearheaded by Dr. Ralph Gonsalves of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, who is really arguably one of the most progressive, if not the most progressive head of state in the Caribbean these days. And one of the major meetings and gatherings of the commission was held in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So you have now these nations who are pushing it, and now activist commissions have been formed in every one. Well, not all of them have formed the commissions. I guess 13 of the 15 have now active commissions, and 10 of those commissions will be represented here at the summit. And so this is a new development. I mean, we've not seen anything like that in recent history. And in the history of the reparations movement, whether it was the Million Reparations March, whether it was Dr. Conrad World doing Recharge Genocide's campaign, or whether it was the legal team of people like, Professor Ogletree and others, and along with others who were pushing the legal claims, or the book, The Debt. There were these things that helped push the movement forward. Also, H.R. 40 that Congressman Conyers has been introducing since 1989. So this is the most recent major development that is giving new energy to a movement that has been there. It's never gone away, but there are these ebbs and flows, and now there's a decided surge in the movement. And so people are coming from everywhere, not just the CARICOM nations, but places like Belize, Colombia, the Afro descendants from Colombia, and people coming from Argentina and Brazil. And then you have all of these nations from Europe. In fact, there's a group in Europe that are themselves creating a European reparations commission, U.S. Virgin Islands, by the way, as well, which has a unique kind of claim. Just within the last 48 hours, a group of people from Canada, from Nova Scotia, because that's a unique story of the
right.
Africans who went there, called, very excited coming. So this is just an amazing. It's a lot of hard work, I got to tell you that.
No kidding. I mean, I called you yesterday, and you sounded pretty exhausted. And I said, I know.
It's exhausting,
I
but
know
it's good
what it must
exhaustion.
take.
This is the kind of exhaustion that you live for as as an activist and an organizer.
Absolutely.
And it's the kind of thing that we again share with the audience, because again we are eager that they come and help make this history, because again, there's never, ever been anything quite like this.
Again, let me just remind listeners, we're speaking with Professor Dr. Ron Daniels, Executive President of the Institute for the Black World in the 21st Century. He's soon to be, next week, will be inaugurating the first edition of Vantage Point here on WBAI as part of our Talkback lineup, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 12 noon. We'll talk about that in a second. But, Ron, unfortunately, we're having some difficulties getting Hilary Beckles on, And I wanted him to address the 10-point plan that the CARICOM nations put forward in 2013 relating to reparations. And so and this is very important because I think some people write off the idea of reparations as something that can't be necessarily implemented in the current context. So could you give us a quick review of some of those points and why they're so relevant at this stage?
Yeah, let me just say a word, too, more about Sir Hilary Beckles, and I really, for no other reason, people really need to come and hear him and see him, because he, just to show you how widely he is respected, he actually substituted for Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves before the British House of Commons. He delivered a speech on reparations before them. He was honored to give the keynote address at the launch of the UN Decade of African Descendants. I mean, that's how widely, he is respected. And so working with his colleagues, they fashioned a 10-point program that has several highlights. One of them is a focus on education. And by the way, one of the things that he always says is that colonialism created the mess. And so this is the most recent effort to clean up the mess created by the European colonialists. And it is largely a developmental strategy. It's not an individual strategy. They're not asking for payments and so forth for individual people, but they're talking about broad-ranging developmental kinds of resources. So education is one of the key points that they are stressing in terms of the absence of infrastructure, sufficient infrastructure in the Caribbean, despite the fact that many of them have made great strides, is a key point.
The issue of technology and the role that the colonial powers played in essence, keeping the Caribbean nations from developing a technological infrastructure and keeping them behind. That's connected to that. And then I think the other issue that comes there's been an active movement as well as the reparations, but the issue of debt cancellation for Caribbean nations.
Absolutely, debt cancellation. And one of the things he talks about too is health. A big emphasis on health. And he goes through and points out the degree to which hypertension, for example, and diabetes is, and when he talks about this, is rampant in the Caribbean, and again traceable as they lay it out to this underdevelopment paradigm.
Murillo discusses his history at WBAI.
Always was interested in radio. I was working in radio already, actually in commercial radio, reporting for 1010 Winds, the all news station. Many years ago, I was just getting my start in radio. I had also done some other kind of freelance work. And then suddenly somebody had indicated to me, and I was already a BAI listener. I was always gravitated towards the kind of community and international and public affairs programming that WBAI produced. So I was already a listener. And then somebody had indicated to me that there was a job opening in the public affairs director position. So I threw my name into the hat thinking there was no prayer in hell that I was going to get it. But apparently I made a good impression with the people who were interviewing me, and then I got into the station at a very young age, dealing with a pretty interesting, dynamic, diverse group of individuals from whom I learned so much in my years at WBAI, in my early years, but throughout my period at BAI. So I came there almost by accident, but with, always driven in that direction. In fact, when I was at college radio, years earlier, some of my colleagues there, because of the kind of programming that I was doing on the radio station there at WNYU, I went to New York University, a lot of them would joke to me and say, Mario, you need to go to WBAI, you need to go to WBAI. And, it never occurred to me that eventually I would end up being a BAI and spending the better part of my adult life there. I started working at WBAI in 1989, early 1989, and some of the first people that I worked with at the time was Samori Marksman, who had the late program director of the station. He had a major impact on me in my development as a broadcaster, as a communicator, and politically also. So I worked with him. I worked closely with, at the time, the outgoing public affairs director, Sally O'Brien. But then I started, developing relationships with many other sectors of the WBAI family, both within and without. One of the things that I implemented was a training program at the station, bringing in a lot of new people, trying to bring a lot of folks in the community to produce radio. And we had that pretty successful in place for a while. You know, it was something that we would like to do once again in terms of bringing new voices, younger voices onto the airwaves.
Michael G. Haskins is the daily host of The Morning Show, bringing a consistent presence all 5 days of the week. In the next segment, Haskins brings on representative of the Free Mumia Abu Jamal Coalition. Mumia Abu Jamal was accused of killing a police officer in Philadelphia, but his trial was full of procedural error, incompetent counsel, and an unscrupulous prosecutorial team. Mumia Abu Jamal attempted to represent himself, but the judge refused. Mumia's death sentence has been lifted and now remains incarcerated for life. And he is beset by a health crisis at this moment.
5 FM WBAI and WBAI.org on the web. Michael G. Haskins and Mario Murillo here in studio, and thank you for tuning in. Well, earlier in the week, as far as actually in the beginning of the week, we found out that Mumia Abu Jamal had a medical emergency and was taken to the intensive care unit at Schuylkill Medical Center in Pottsville, Pennsylvania, and it was a serious condition. And his condition has improved, but we find now that he is back in population. We don't know how his medical condition has improved, but we have on the line with us now Dr. Suzanne Ross, a longtime activist in the Free Mumia Abu Jamal Coalition, and with friends and family of Mumia Abu Jamal. Suzanne Ross, good morning, and thank you for joining us again on the morning show.
Good morning, and thank you so much for accommodating us and having us on this morning. First of all, I just want to say ahead of time that I'm on my way with many, many other people to the prison where Mumia is, Mahanoy, which is in Frackville, Pennsylvania, and later on in the day we're heading for the Department of Corrections headquarters, which is headed by John Wetzel, Wetzel. And also that so we're having a demonstration at the prison this morning, and then later on at the headquarters of the Department of Corrections of Pennsylvania. Also today there will be a demonstration at 5 p.m. here in New York City at the Federal Building, and then the march over to the police headquarters.
Okay. So Suzanne, so what's his condition now? I understand that he was released back into a population. Has his condition
He's not
stabilized?
In population. He was released into absolutely as an example of the kind of malpractice and viciousness of the system. He was sent out of released from the hospital and sent to the prison in the infirmary. This is a man who is very, very ill. He had 779 blood sugar level, just short of the 800 figure that causes a diabetic coma. So that's been a little bit lowered and a little bit safer. But in the meantime, his sodium level has been raised. They think he has kidney stones. He's been shaking. So he's gotten better on what was the immediate crisis, but he's gotten worse in several other ways. Whatever they've done to him in the last 3 months, and it's hard to track, of course, because it's all secret, but what they've done to him has caused a level of deterioration that's frightening and is very eerie to all of us who watched Phil Africa die just in January, so recently, in a similarly mysterious way. But because Mumia is more well-known, the process is being dragged out, hopefully will save his life. That's what we're talking about.
Suzanne, so let me ask you, we only have about another minute or so.
Right.
What do you want people to do? I know we were giving numbers out earlier in the week, and people seem to respond. What do you want people to do right now?
People should be calling non-stop, demanding proper medical care from outside doctors, demanding visitation rights, daily visitation rights, demanding all the things that could save Mumia's life, and also we have more general demands that we don't have time to go into for all prisoners in the system, because the system is so deadly for everyone. If this is what's happening to Mumia, could you imagine what's happening to thousands of prisoners who are so much less well known?
Right.
Of course, Mumia is also targeted, so it's kind of a mixed bag.
Sure.
But people should be calling the head. Please go to freemumia.com. You'll see all the numbers. But in particular, call John Wetzel of the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections, because he is ultimately accountable.
And what's that number quickly?
Call.
So much,
please,
Suzanne.
thank you. Please call. Thanks for all your support.
All right, absolutely.
Me and all our prisoners.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Suzanne Ross, longtime activist in the Free Mumia Abu Jamal Coalition and with friends and family of Mumia Abu Jamal. John Wetzel's number, that's WETZL, Secretary of Pennsylvania Department of Corrections, 717-728-4109. 717-728-4109 about the condition of Mumia Abu Jamal. This is WBAI in New York, 99.5 FM, WBAI.org. Stay with us.
As we draw this episode to a close, interim WBAI Program Director Mario Murillo discusses the continuing changes to the schedule, including the reintroduction of Talkback at a new 10 to noon time slot.
It's really not that new. So, some of it is new, some of it is trying to bring back things that have been successful in the past. I think the program that I've tried to develop over the last few months is this program Talkback. Talkback has been on BAI for years. This is one of the things that we implemented back in the early 90s, where we recognized a need for consistency on the schedule to build expectations in the listeners, get the listeners engaged and involved, and make them a part of it. So Talkback was started a long time ago, but for some reason over the years it disappeared. Part of it was funding, right? The staffing that we had for Talkback was let go because of budget crisis. So my thinking was, well, we don't have the money to pay for a full-time host and full-time producer for the show. Let's create a space where we're still going to have the same format, still take listener calls and get the listeners part of the discussion, but with different hosts Monday through Thursday or Monday through Friday, whatever it may be. So that's been long in coming, because I've been reaching out and trying to get a whole slew of different people that I've invited and met with and had coffees with and try to get them to be a part of that. And some people say yes, but then they can't make a commitment. Others say outright that they don't have the time or the energy to do it. Other people look at me and say, I don't know if I want anything to do with WBAI. I mean, it's been an interesting experience for me. It's a real interesting different perspectives about what BAI is. It goes back to your earlier question about its relevance. But there have been several people who have taken it on. So we have now Ron Daniels, who's going to start, the president of the Black World in the 21st Century. We have attorney Gloria Brown Marshall, who's going to start on Tuesdays doing the Talkback slot at 10 a.m. And then I was successful in getting John McDonough and Malachi McCord on Wednesday, and on Thursday, John Kane. So we have a very diverse group of people there, different perspectives, different worldviews and experiences, and personal experiences. And I think that, with the consistency of the listener guests kind of back and forth, I think is going to hopefully build an audience and people will appreciate it.
Floor boss, he's the boss's son. He thinks that he owns everyone, just like his daddy owned us all before. I don't care about his college degree. Man ain't one bit better than me, and I ain't gonna